It has been a hot minute since we've seen any sort of promotional material for Black Ops 7 until today, and you probably thought this wasn't enough to make a video of, but on stream we talked about this and there was actually a lot that I could pull out of this. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, from the very beginning, this was the promotional image that we saw for Black Ops 7. It was David Mason with the Black Ops 7 logo, and we weren't going to be hearing anything until August 19th, which is Gamescom opening night. However, today, 2 weeks ahead of schedule, they put out this image. Now, this may not seem like a big deal. You may not even know who this character is, but today we are going to clear all of that up because there's actually quite a bit of information and tells that we can get about the story of Black Ops 7 just from this image alone. So let's start by breaking it down. Now, first of all, who is this character? If you don't know yet, this character goes by the name of Emma Kagan. Now, Emma Kagan is the owner and CEO of the Guild. Now, you may know what the Guild is from Black Ops 6 or you may not, but just as a quick breakdown, here is what we know as of now. In the year 1991 on Avalon, they were the largest of the crime families. In fact, Savati Dumas was an assassin for the Guild. Eventually, she ends up murdering her husband and then turning against the Guild, but sometime between the year 1991 and 2035, when Black Ops 7 takes place, all of a sudden, the Guild becomes a multinational robotics company that we see in the Black Ops 7 reveal trailer. Now, we see Emma Kagan within this trailer kind of showing off to David Mason what this company is all about. Now, here's the thing. When I saw this, I immediately thought Emma Kagan was the bad guy within the game. There's some evidence to support this, which we'll go through in a second. However, it is pretty rare to have promo images this early with the bad guy. We've seen it before with Vladimir Makarov, but we already knew he was in the game. We've seen it before with Kevin Spacey in Advanced Warfare, but all in all, these are relatively rare to see if they are a bad guy. But why would I think Emma Kagan is an evil character? Well, if we go and look at the ESRB rating for the game, we got a little description as to what you will do in the game. It says, players engage in combat missions through outdoor terrains and realistic urban environments as players try to prevent a tech titan from gaining power. So seemingly we're going to be against the tech titan, and we already know from the trailer, the leader of the Guild, which is a giant tech company, is Emma Kagan. So originally, upon looking at this, I saw two things that didn't actually exist in this picture. You see, in one of her hands, she is holding a pistol. Originally, I thought that was a prosthetic hand. However, I actually think it's just tattoos on her wrist and then a weird, strange glove like Ash Ketchum that she's wearing on her hand as well. So that wasn't the case. And then I looked at her neck and I'm like, is that a prosthetic as well? But no, I believe that's just the collar of her jacket. However, one thing that I did find in this is in her ear, it appears as though there is some sort of weird headset or something along those lines. Which here is where things get really interesting. If we go back to the original trailer, when they first show us the kind of promo image of David Mason, we can also see that David Mason has a very similar triangular headpiece in his ear as well, lending to the question whether or not David Mason is actually working with Emma Kagan, and then maybe she goes rogue a little later on. But there is one other thing we can try to extrapolate through this as well. So I think the big thing when looking at this is that Black Ops 7 is going to be about a tech giant. Now, we currently, in Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4, which kind of start taking place in the year 2045, we know of a company, and they're the ones that created the direct neural interface. They're known as the Coalescence Corporation. Now, if we go and kind of read a little bit about the Coalescence Corporation, there's two kind of dates that you should know about. First of all, in 2026, so right after the events of Black Ops 2, Coalescence was apparently partnering with DARPA to conduct research into augmentations, which marked the beginning of the corporation's trade in human augmentations. So like I said about the wrist before, or like we're going to talk about with direct neural interfaces, that is what we're going to be talking about. But also in the 2040s, that is when the widespread adoption of exoskeletons became a big thing. So that is just after the events of Black Ops 7. Now, as I mentioned, the direct neural interface. Now, this is essentially a thing that we see within Black Ops 3, which is in the back of someone's head and allows them to interact with things, whether it be computers or whether it be a specific device like a hand augmentation or a leg augmentation. Now, it says by 2010, it is estimated that over 200,000 cochlear implants have been fitted and early work on restoring sight is underway. In the late 2010s, an electronic device was first successfully used to restore mobility and sensation in a teenager who had a spinal injury in a vehicular accident. I'm going to put it out there. I think this person is going to be in Black Ops 7, because at that point they would kind of be in their 40s, maybe even 50s. I don't know. That's something interesting to look at. But putting that aside, the statement that they made before that about 200,000 cochlear implants, well, all of a sudden we see David Mason as well as Emma Kagan with these things in her ears. Now, those aren't present day cochlear implants. However, it could be some sort of futuristic cochlear implants that works with some sort of technology or even a DNI, or could be an early version of that all put together in one. Why am I bringing up direct neural interfaces when I'm sure a lot of you are yelling at the screen that the thing in Emma Kagan's ear is just some sort of earpiece? Well, it also goes with the rest of what we saw in the trailer. At the kind of middle of the trailer, we see David Mason kind of go into this really ridiculous mind palace. Clearly, he's either tripping out or being used in some sort of computer simulation in one way or another. And another thing that actually confirms this is the fact that he hears and sees Raul Menendez, because we know from the canon ending of Black Ops 2 that Raul Menendez is indeed dead. So in other words, everything that's going on after the glass breaks within the teaser is in his head. Now, here is something I have yet to talk about with this trailer, and it's something I have seen no one else notice. So we are introduced to Emma Kagan, which is seemingly shown to us in some sort of hologram. Now, what's interesting about this is it just seems as though this is something that was maybe pre-recorded or something along those lines. However, there is one thing that manages to change and twist about this. After she gives her little speech, this butterfly flies through the hologram and eventually lands on a screen. Now, what it does, it blends in with the screen and becomes a part of the simulation, if you will. When David Mason goes over and touches the screen cracks. But if you pay attention to the screen, Emma Kagan immediately goes from looking at the robot and where David Mason was to quite literally staring at David Mason and looking over his shoulder. I think this is being done on purpose to show that Emma Kagan is watching him, that maybe even she has put a direct neural interface in David Mason, and somehow that'll coalesce all together in one. I actually didn't use coalesce to trigger the Coalescence Corporation, but that did work very well. Also, just as a side note, within 10 years after the Black Ops 7 campaign, David Mason's daughter, Savannah Masons, becomes the world's richest person via tech, via augmentations, via direct neural interfaces. So somehow, after the events of this game, it kind of has to tie together in one way or another. And that is something I haven't quite figured out yet, but hey, maybe we'll kind of figure that out as the campaign goes on. But that's what we know for now. Stay tuned for August 19th. Make sure you subscribe, turn notifications on. I got a lot of videos coming this week between Battlefield and Call of Duty and a bunch of story stuff. So make sure you're subscribed. And until next time, peace.
We are reaching for the stars, but we're